All right. Hello, everybody. It's John. Not the greatest quality or anything right now, but I just kind of wanted to get this in. I'm going to be entering into sort of a large review mode here. We've got Andor and She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and Rings of Power. I feel like I'm missing something else. But also, this focus will be Halloween Ends. And honestly, it couldn't have ended soon enough. It was, I do believe the kids will say, a real bad. It almost felt like some of those Hellraiser movies or those other movies where we had a story idea for something else, and then we're going to throw this IP into it in order to um, make this all better. Everyone can have fun and get money on this, and it just got real bad. Honestly, it was a hot damn mess from the get go. I will say there were a couple cool kills. Um, there were a couple cool moments, but most of those had to do on the vague off chance that they remembered that there was a larger story that they were supposed to be a part of. It really felt that they forgot they were making a movie about Halloween and Michael Myers. And it almost is sort of like you could have had a movie of people who have been through like horrible like survivor trauma on different levels in different ways, and they kind of found each other and this other stuff. Yeah, you could have a couple people who were related, shared family trauma, and then this other person who sort of entered their life who had this other effed up trauma, and then they got together, and you have different ways of people coping with that, and some people try and move on, some people struggle mightily with it, and maybe even do things that are harmful to themselves or others, and then the other people who just sort of succumb to the trauma and turn into traumatizers themselves. And so it's almost like they could have done something cool with that in a completely different setting, in a completely different movie, even use all the same actors if you want. It's sort of like, you have to do that thing like, hey, we have a company that I'm going to use, the Quentin Tarantino, Rob Zombie, um, things like that, where it's like, hey, we have these few actors that we like to work with a lot, and we're going to put them together again, and this is going to be cool. We did the big movie for the studio, and now we're going to do the smaller movie for us that we want to act and direct in. That's going to be, more artistic or something like that. And that would have been fine. And they could have kept it a Blumhouse movie and still made it a murdery slasher movie that built up from this other place of people trying to heal after the horrible crap happened to them. They could have done something cool with that, semicolon, in a different movie. In this movie, where they already have an established story that they want to get to, they already have an established, set and setting and people and characters and point to this movie that they completely abandoned. They did a better job in this first of the Blumhouse Halloween from 2018. They did a better job calling back to the original Halloween from 40 years before in that movie than Halloween Ends did in connecting to the two movies that directly preceded it. You pretty much don't need to watch Halloween or Halloween Kills to know kind of what's going on in this movie. And if you watch Halloween and Halloween Kills, don't bother watching this movie because there's no point to it. There's really no point to it. There's maybe a point in watching 5 minutes of it, maybe. If you get, I remember when the Phantom Menace come out. There we go. That's grammar. When the Phantom Menace came out on DVD, a friend of mine who used to work with at Borders got a copy of they called the Phantom Edit, where it was that whole almost 2 hours or whatever, however long Phantom Menace is, and it was real. They pared it down like a 15-20 minute feature. Pared it down from all the other sort of crap that no one wanted to see and was really boring, and just kept some of the cooler stuff in it. You could do with that with this, and it would still be shorter. If you kept the stuff that made sense and that was good from Halloween Ends, I want you to listen to me on this. If you keep the stuff that was cool and made sense in Halloween Ends and put it all together into a short supercut, it would be less time than the Phantom Edit. That's right. Now that I'm hearing myself say this, I didn't actually think about this until right now. You're hearing it. I mean, not live because this is recorded, but live as it's going through my brain. The Phantom Menace is probably a better movie than Halloween Kills. Sorry, and I'm not sorry about that at all, because screw this movie. I don't know if they had a plan to kind of go off into left field from the beginning. If they did the whole Lost, normally what happens to like a Damon Lindelof sort of thing. I will give credit where credit due. That Watchmen show was actually pretty solid throughout. But most of the time you get a Damon Lindelof thing, or other people from Lost, or J.J. Abrams. Is sort of like we kind of get a good idea in the beginning and we don't know what the fuck to do by the end of it. You write a song, you got a you pretty good chorus, you got a pretty good verse or two, and then you just don't know how to end it. And like every pop song just has a fade out because we don't know what we're doing ending it. At least Monty Python leaned into it and said, crap, we don't know how to end these sketches, so we're just going to do something silly to transition to something else. This was a failure on all those parts. It wasn't a fade out, it wasn't a silly transition, it wasn't anything that made sense for the two movies that came before. It didn't. It was just stupid. It was I don't know, insulting possibly. Like I don't know if this is maybe just the creators started smelling themselves, trying to get fancy, trying to get artistic, or something like that too, but it was really just whatever it is they were trying to do, they sucked at it bad. Okay, so basically it opens up with this like 21-year-old dude who is going to babysit on Halloween night the year after Michael Myers comes back. And he's at this really, really fancy, like 3-story mansion house, and this couple's going to some company Halloween party. And the dude's talking, I guess he like mowed their lawn, did some stuff. He's talking about wanting to go into like engineering school and all that. He's a little nerdy or something like that, a little kind of like little awkward, but doesn't seem that bad. And I guess, the little kid he's babysitting was kind of nervous about the Michael Myers stuff from the year previous. So it begins in 2019. So, the dude lets the kid watch, cleverly, John Carpenter's The Thing. Calling back to John Carpenter in his, Halloween movie, watching the original Thing, the better Thing. And then, they kind of, had callbacks to that in the other movies and even Rob Zombies and stuff like that. So in this one, they're watching John Carpenter's The Thing. Because that should have been the clue. I caught it and like, oh, that's cute. John Carpenter's The Thing. Eye roll. And that should have been the clue that the rest of this movie was going to just wipe your ass with. Because it's like, oh, look what we did. We're clever. Get it? So, this guy, the kid sort of heel turns into being a massive dick, and the dude's like, all right, then fine, you're going to bed. And then immediately after he says, all right, 5 minutes, you're going to bed, and they kind of have like this argument, he goes into the kitchen. For what reason? Maybe get the zucchini bread they mentioned half a second. Maybe get some chocolate milk. Kind of setting. They use chocolate milk more than once with this dude. I even forgot his name. It might be Corey. I think it's Corey. I just realized I actually forgot the dude's name. They said it like a million times. I didn't even remember. They used chocolate milk a couple of times as symbolism, right? So in this time, he's going to get the chocolate milk, and he doesn't get to drink it because there's like a weird sound and stuff. So apparently, this like 5, 6 year old kid makes this elaborate plot to fuck with this dude. Takes this knife, knocks over a lamp, and goes running around hiding in these different ways of the house and freaking this dude out. You kind of get the sense, I don't know if they were blatantly going for this or they just thought, this kid likes engineering, so we'll make him socially awkward, or they were actually going for the he might be a bit on the spectrum sort of thing, like what we would have in the past few years called Asperger's, as opposed to, because in the DSM-5 they just sort of folded all sort of autism spectrum into spectrum disorder, which I never agreed with, because having Asperger's, it's kind of its own encapsulated sort of diagnosis, as still acknowledging being on an autism spectrum, but kind of having its own little um, grotto of a diagnosis. I always thought was very helpful, because there is sort of like a, not a separation, but there is a definite sort of like, all right, um, there's definitely a case to be made for keeping Asperger's its own thing. Let me just say that. So I don't know if that's actively what they were trying to go for. They never actually gave this dude a diagnosis. They gave him a really shitty mom who might be borderline, but is definitely, like you can blatantly see, like, okay, this kid's been pretty fucked up from birth and everything. Okay. Um, but so he starts getting, kind of like, he's freaked out, and they find the knife on the stairs. He's got the knife, and you're like, he's gonna stab the kid, he's gonna cut the kid or something like that. And then he ends up getting like locked in the attic, basically. Kind of have like a walk-in attic or side room or something that looks like an attic. He kind of pretty much gets locked in there. And then, the kid's fucking with him as the parents are coming home. And the guy, Corey, like kicks the door down a couple times, kicks the door a bunch of times. The door finally busts open, hits the kid in the face, and somehow goes over the railing that's taller than him, or almost taller than him, and bam, face first, crashes, broken body, 3, 4 stories down on the hardwood floor. I might have missed, maybe he bounced off a step or something like that. Either way, just getting hit in the face with the door would not have knocked this kid. If he had done anything, he would have probably fell down the steps. But it was, there's 2 doors to this attic room. I don't know why. And he kind of went in one that was right up from the steps and was trying to kick the other one, which would have had the railing under him. There's no way this kid was big enough that he should have flown up and over and then down. It is ridiculous from the start, but okay, whatever. Maybe they just really like the house, and because they really like the whole thing of the house, they kind of fudge the numbers a little bit on how it's going to look in terms of this kid falling and dying. Horrible, horrible accident. Never should have happened, but these things unfortunately do. Then we cut to Lori as narrator. And at first it's sort of like, are we really just going to have a narrator now? Really? But she's writing a book. Now 4 years have passed, so we're in current time now, 2022. So it's been 4 years since Michael Myers came out and he's magically disappeared. It's been 3 years since Corey had the accident with this bratty little asshole kid. Lori and Allison are living together. Grandmother, granddaughter living together. Big ass, really nice house for them too. Not the mansion, but really nice house for them too. Um, and they seem to be doing pretty well, like emotionally. Lori makes some sort of reference to, um, yeah, trying to heal, and I tried, running from Michael. I tried chasing Michael. I tried forgiving him. I tried all this other stuff. Now I'm going to try like moving on. So all this horrible shit happened. She actually is trying to like make something with herself. So, she got her hair did. They got a house in the city, not out in the sticks. Allison is a nurse, and all this other stuff. And so they're still mourning in a certain thing. Like Lori gives Allison a necklace that's got her parents' wedding rings on them and all that, and she's wearing it throughout. It's like okay, a little bit more reasonable in terms of horrible shit happened, trying to move on, still struggling. Okay. What's her name? Who was the other little kid to get babysat back in the day and who was briefly in Halloween Kills is in this, and she's working in a bar and reads tarot now. And that's her whole thing. She works at the bar, reads tarot. All character development for what's her name done on that one. But whatever. So, Corey keeps getting bullied. Won't buy beer for these. Now get this, marching band bullies, right? So normally the jock bully roles are done for marching band members. Yeah, some rich kid, chisel face, sort of massive douchebag whose rich daddy clearly doesn't like him and is a bully, so this kid bullies too. There's a heavyset white girl who's the lone voice of I don't think we should do this, but still goes along with it anyway. There's an African American girl there who's sort of like cheering it on, and then there is this other like follower, psycho little bully kid. It's not like little, I mean, they're 17, 18 years old. And he always has drumsticks with him. And his hair looks like every type of sort of meth addict, sister banging, hillbilly, redneck, white trash trope all put together. It's a bowl cut mullet with the sides shaved. And I think my point is that they're cornering Corey to try and buy them beer. And the first thing, if this were me, I would have looked at that dude. I'm like, you sure you should be drinking with a haircut like that? It looks like you've had some too many. You need to cut. I would have said some smart ass shit about this dude's hair, because my God, no one should be allowed, even as a joke, to wear that. No. But and this is the thing. He goes to the store. He's indecisive about what he wants to get for himself. He gets a bottle of chocolate milk. He gets super mad when he's being bullied and he breaks the bottle in his hand, cuts the living shit out of his hand. He's got this big, huge cut in it throughout the whole thing. And it really seems like this was supposed to be some sort of symbolic thing with in terms of the cut. I'm not entirely sure what that was supposed to be. It might be some sort of, they talk about infection later, and there seems to be some sort of healing power of crazed, rage filled psycho murder too, maybe, and that's what it's supposed to see. But you see, he went to get the chocolate milk, and he left it on the counter and didn't drink it, and that's like innocence, right? Chocolate milk apparently equals innocence. And then when he broke the bottle in his hand, his innocence was finally completely shattered. And he's now cut deep and maybe infected now with this now rage or something. I don't know. I'm some of this I'm just thinking now because it's so stupid. It didn't hit me at the time. It's just now infecting my subconscious as we speak, and I only watched it a couple hours ago. So he gets bullied. Lori kind of not saves him from it, but kind of like, "Hey, what are you kids doing?" sort of thing. And she's like, and everyone knows who everyone is. It's a small town, so everyone knows who everyone is. So she kind of pep talks him a little bit, and then pulls out a knife. She's like, "Do you want to do it or should I?" So they puncture this kid's tire and then run away, and not literally run away, but they leave. And then Lori thinks that, hey, this damaged, goofy looking kid is, going to be perfect for Allison. And yeah, apparently, now this is one of those things where the romance in this is painful to watch, because not since maybe Nightmare on Elm Street 2 has a, a couple at the forefront of a horror movie had so little chemistry and and so little sense to their romance. And I like Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's fun. I enjoy watching it. It's a laugh, it's goofy, it's silly. And if you get a chance, watch Scream Queen, about the kid who played Jesse. And it's about now. And that dude's life went through a lot of shit after that. And that documentary goes through a lot of it, and it's really, really cool to see. And man, my heart goes out to that guy. He had a shitty life after Nightmare 2. But not since then. Not since then, where you have an attractive, intelligent, interesting female, or young woman, and an absolute sort of, I guess, dud of a guy to a certain extent, who would have basically blown his shot with said young woman in the first 90 seconds. Like, she's coming on strong to him, and he's derp 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 derp. Even if she did have some sort of lightning strike moment upon first meeting this kid, no one who has come off as that capable, as that intelligent, as that sort of strong and survivor is going to waste her time with this wet fart of a dude. Right? Like, unless George Lucas had something to do with writing this and is still, in that, here's Padme, and then here's Anakin. Here's Padme, here's Obi-Wan. Oh, but no, I got the hots for the last time I saw this dude, he was 9 with his bowl cut lemon head, and then now he's committing genocide, and that's supposed to turn me on. What? there's no chemistry between them, and it's ill, and that might be just a thing with the actors, but also in terms of the characters. No, she would not have anything to do with him. Even as much as she tried to say, hey, when I saw you, I understood that here's someone who has gone through a horrible, horrible thing, and no one in this town is going to let them forget it. No one in this town is going to see them the same way. And Corey actually made a good point. Is like, no, when they see you, they see a survivor, someone who struggled. They see a hero. When they see me, they see a psycho little fucking kid murderer. It's not the same thing. And he made a good point with that. But she's still like this, like tortured. It was almost sort of like they got a 13-year-old um uh like like fakely stereotypical girl write this. Like, oh, she's going to be somewhat tortured holding a candle for this wet fart of a dude. Like, no, 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 no. Absolutely not. She would not be falling for this guy at all. And um, so yeah, this is like this totally unbelievable part of it. Like their romance is completely unbelievable. Not even unbelievable in terms of like I can't believe this huge crazy thing happened. It's unbelievable, and there's no damn way. Okay, so no. So they end up going out, and he to this party that she wasn't even going to go to, like the clinic or part of the hospital she works on. The doctor she works for is a complete asshat, just completely like blaming her for shit that's not her fault, being really just short and terse, like she's not even extant there, while and up for promotion, which spoiler alert, her coworker, who's a little bit of I think maybe supposed to be a little bit older of a woman, but not like a whole lot, like still probably in her 20s, um, won't shut the fuck up. Like is constantly talking, constantly just annoying talking. And again, spoiler alert, is either fucking or about to start fucking the doctor and gets the promotion over Lori. Not Lori, Allison. Right? So now look at this. I've been talking about this for a while, right? What the fuck does this have to do with anything else Halloween, right? I mean, there's a little bit of trauma, a little bit of survivor stuff. But again, this is almost like what I've talked about with those monster movies before, like the Godzilla from a few years ago, and then now Godzilla versus Kong from a couple years ago. I don't give a shit about all the people stuff when you have a monster movie. The people stuff should be getting you to the point of and pointing towards all the things that are going to happen with the murder stuff or with the monster stuff or something like that. Halloween and Halloween Kill, the 2018 Halloween and Halloween Kills worked because it was about Michael Myers. It was focused on that. This is a spin-off movie. If you want to keep it still in the Halloween universe, this is a spin-off movie. This is not the actual mainline timeline franchise movie. So they go to the party, and Corey sees the mom of the kid that died, and he freaks out, which okay, he's got heavy PTSD too. I get it. He freaks out. He freaks out on Allison and kind of yells at her and freaks out and leaves. Um and that's somewhat believable. I kind of get it. Um he's kind of shitty, but the shitty part of that is how much work Allison is putting into this kid. Like no one would put this much sort of work in this unless they're heavily codependent and already sort of involved in that like abusive relationship, not at the very outset, and it's so, and Like she looks amazing. She's got like this um like sort of like a cat mask. It's not even really a costume. It's just the most part of the costume is like this cat mask thing. Um, but she's got like sort of a leopard print like tank top thing and like this like mesh with some design like long sleeve like top over it like a little skirt. And I'm just sort of like, there's no way. No, she looked too damn good for that. No. So this, Corey's walking home. Now, notice how much I'm talking about Corey. There's a lot of this movie that revolves around this fucking kid. And it's almost like Lori and Allison for chunks of this movie are supporting roles for him. Okay. No. So the band bullies, because now we're supposed to be like, oh wow, these band kids are real badass. Like, who the fuck made that decision? Like, is someone on the writing team trying to talk? Because again, this is what happens when you get 4 or 5 people writing a movie. You get dumb shit like this sometimes. No. Very rarely are more than like 2 people writing a movie a good thing. And there's like 4 or 5 people writing this. So these band kids that are bullying him, these 17-year-old kids who are bullying at this point in time, I think he's supposed to be 24. Now, granted, you can't go off and hit a high school kid, but still, they kind of get into it. They, he's walking over a bridge, right? The kids pull off, not even pull off, but park the car. And apparently there is literally no other traffic while this is going on at all. Right? There's no other traffic that are seeing this. These kids pulling the thing. So they bully him, and he kind of stands up to himself a little bit, even makes the point to the ringleader that, because they saw him at this dude's job earlier, that, okay, your dad doesn't like you, so you're going to go around and try and act like a tough guy, even though like that, because that's what your dad does to you. So they kind of bully him a little bit. He tries to kind of stand up for himself in a really weak way. I think he's got a knife for like 2 seconds, and then the crazy, ridiculous haired kid with the drumsticks, who legitimately is probably a little psycho himself, actually like hits with the drumstick the knife over the bridge and gets rid. I'm like, it was actually kind of a smooth little movement, which I respect that. And then they get all mad, and they push Corey around, and then the main dude grabs Corey kind of around the thing and basically pushes him off the bridge. And it's like a 30-foot drop or so onto the like embankment below. They look down, he's not moving. They think they killed him. The dude with the haircut's like, oh, he fucking deserved it. And the other ones are like freaking out, and like the main guy was like, he fell. I didn't push him. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And then just sort of like leave. So this is look how much description I'm having. Like this movie should not have this much dumb shit going on. It should be way shorter. It's like, hey, do you know what like a plot for this should be? Way the fuck simpler than this. So you have gotten a couple interspersed cuts with like a homeless guy or two under this thing, and they're under this overpass, they're under this bridge, and there's this drainage pipe that you keep getting ominously foreshadowed by this homeless guy in this overpass, right? You keep getting this foreshadowed. So he goes there, he falls, and you see Corey get dragged away. And lo and behold, long story short, it's Michael Myers. Now he shows up 1,000,000 hours into the damn movie, right? So he's in. So he gets pulled into, I don't know, sluice hallway, some sort of sewer foyer kind of thing. And Michael Myers is all kind of fucked up, right? He's all beat to hell. He's moving like he's hurt. He's moving like he's hurt real bad, and everything else like that. So the kid wakes up, and Mikey grabs him up, and then some sort of mind meld happens. Kind of. You see, like, into the kid's eyes, Michael the kid's eyes, and then flashes of shit happen. And it's mostly the bullying from like 20 seconds ago, and like the kid dying, and all this other stuff. It is completely unclear whether Michael Myers is reading this kid's mind, is entering this kid's mind, and potentially turning on some evil, or is placed a piece of himself, like some sort of sliver of his soul, into this kid, and now this kid's going to start turning evil because he has a piece of Michael Myers in him. Like if like Loudna and Delilah Briarwood in Critical Role Campaign 3. There's like a piece of Michael Myers in this Corey kid now. Or he read his mind. Or he turned... It's completely unclear what happens. It's just now eyes. Stuff that just happened earlier in the movie. And Michael Myers lets him go. Okay. Does Michael Myers now have a no accidental killer policy? Did he see into this kid, hey, you're a killer too, so high five? What? No. Who knows? It's not explained. It's not described. It is in no way, shape, or form clear why the hell this happens. Not clear at all. Not clear. And it's stupid. Either way, it's a dumb decision either way, but there you go. It happened. So the kid leaves, and then he's slowly, and then I'm going to try and wrap this up because it really doesn't deserve this much detail that I'm giving it. It's just like I'm trying to replay it to find maybe something redeemable about it. And there's so much just dumb shit like you can't believe. So he goes back, and then there's some callbacks to other Michaels, and then Laurie all of a sudden now is like, oh crap, something's now wrong with this kid. Something happened. I see Michael Myers in this kid now. And then Allison, who again is probably now like 21, 22 herself, and going all through this, is acting like a 13-year-old about, no, he's good. And Laurie's starting to get, I don't know, there's a problem here. But Allison's like, no, he's good. He understands me. I understand him. We're going to run away together. And it kind of goes on in terms of that. And that has conflict between Laurie and Allison over this douchebag. This complete wet fart, just limp wanger dude. Oh God. And then it's Laurie talks to then the dad of the kid who died, and he's like, I don't believe this kid did it intentionally. He was a good dude. I liked him. You looked in his eyes, you're like, this is a solid dude. And I went to tell him that, and I saw him on the street, and I drove next to him, and I looked at him, but that wasn't the same eyes that I saw before. The eyes of the other kid wouldn't have done it. So the eyes of this kid maybe would have done it. Now, was that always there, or did the town do that to him? I don't know, but it's there now. I also want to mention this too, because more than one person in the town apparently is blaming all of Michael Myers' shit on at least Laurie, and sometimes Allison too. It's your crusade. You did this. If you hadn't have taunted him, like, what the fuck to do to Laurie to taunt him? She stayed on her own. She tried to tell people about him and stuff like that. It was this news crew, the podcasters, and this psycho doctor were the ones that let him out. Laurie and Allison and the was Judy Greer's character weren't the ones that whipped up the mob that chased after the other mental patient. They weren't the ones that whipped up the mob to go after them. They kind of became part of it as it went along, but so did like 100 other people. There were people looking for Michael all the time, and they're blaming it was this she gets like accosted outside this grocery store where her and the sheriff are like, oh, not the sheriff, but 'cause that's the African American dude, but I can't remember Mike or whatever the dude's name that was supposedly in the first one. Like they're awkwardly flirting at each other. But this woman saw, and it's the one African American woman from Halloween Kills who got like stabbed in the neck and who had the what was that, the drone. And it's like, she's your neighbor, you don't even know her name. And it was like, wasn't her neighbor then? Kind of. I mean, Lori lived, there was a huge amount of space between her and everyone else. Like, what the hell? And it was like, it was because you had to taunt this man that he went off and he killed my dad and attacked my mom and she can't even walk and all this other stuff. It's like, the fuck are you talking about? Were you watching the same fucking movie I was? Because Lori was not the one that taunted Michael Myers to go out and start killing people. That wasn't him. It was like everyone else but her. The hell are you talking about? But it was forced. It was forced conflict to try and show like people are against Lori and Allison, and they're handling these things in different ways. It was forced bullshit to try and make it seem like it made sense for Allison to be with Corey, because this is the type of treatment they get from the town, and it didn't make sense, and it was damn stupid decision to make it like that. Especially later on when all the town comes together and is almost like solemnly walking Lori down to finish Michael off. Like, it's just this dumbass decision that contradicts dumbass decision throughout this movie. So Corey continues to spiral in terms of murdery sort of thing, and he goes out and he kill like the homeless guy, like later on accosts him and pulls a knife on him, and and Corey's trying to defend himself and like accidentally kills the homeless guy. So he's like, trying to, him and Allison are like, we need to get out of this town and away from this. We're the only people that understand each other. Man, we're it. Everyone else is against us, and we're the only people that understand. Wank, wank, wank. So this is causing more conflict. Lori and Allison. Corey is spiraling. He's now apparently going to Michael Myers to get tips on how to kill people, because now he's spiraling off into being a murderer, and it's vaguely left up to the audience about whether it was the town that drove him to this or it was in him all along. And Lori has moments where she's saying there's big evil outside that threatens you and threatens the tribe and all this other thing, but then there's the personal evil that's inside of you. So maybe this evil was inside of this kid all along, and these things sparked and brought this out of him. So he's getting tips on how to kill people from Michael Myers. And there's apparently another thing that completely didn't make sense, but this might make sense of why she's into Corey. Apparently Allison had dated this cop who is 15 years her senior, heavy set. I'm comfortable enough in myself to admit when there is a man who is handsome. Michael Fassbender, Idris Elba, Donnie Yen. These are handsome, attractive men. Cool. I don't want it. I'm not necessarily romantically or sexually interested, but you know what? God damn it, they are attractive men. And I don't blame the MCU for having, their actors are going through all this like workout stuff and everything. Yeah, go ahead. Show off them abs. Good on you. But and plus, I mean, there's enough, um, exploitation of the female form up like that. Put some male exploitation on there too. Great. But this dude is this sort of chunky, like rough faced asshole. He's super pushy, like really pushy. Like the ones where if the woman says no, he thinks that just means that it really means yes. And he's going to push more, and he's going to push more, and he's going to push more, and he's going to get in your face more, and he's going to hound you and harass you and hound you and harass you. And now he's a cop too, so he's going to get away with it. But he shows up a couple of times, and he's like really pushy to her. It's like there's no way, even in a trauma fugue, that she would date this fucking dude. No fucking way at all. None. And and so he gets pushy with her, and she's like recoiling from him in like this diner at one point in time. And then Corey gets up in the dude's face, and he backs down. He goes back with his other little cop buddies, and he's like, "Who wants to kick his ass?" Because that's the real sign of a tough guy, when you need to have two, three, four, eight or more of your buddies and or weapons or something like that to deal with a conflict that doesn't even need to be physical to begin with, but you turn physical. You're a tough guy when you have other buddies. He's like, "No, I'll handle it." So he follows this kid, and you seem to think that you get the idea eventually that Corey knew that this cop asshole was following him, and he follows him to the underpass, and Corey fucks with him a little bit and gets him in there, and there's Michael Myers. And Michael Myers is moving a little rough still, and they get the cop down, and Corey's holding him back. He's like, "Show me, like teach me, show me." And Michael stabs the dude a couple times, and then he seems to heal. He's like, it looks like he's shaking, and you're hearing him breathe funny, and the mask is creaking weird. And the more he kills this guy, he seems to heal, and he seems to get more power. Okay, there's always been a certain, even if you remove like the Thorn cult timeline of things, there's always been a sort of, is he or is he not, maybe a little supernatural thing to that too. So it's like, okay, like you hinted at it before, but you're blatantly showing that murdering people, especially the more completely berserker rage he murders people, the more power he gets, the more energy he gets. He can heal. He can maybe not even won't grow his fingers back or something else, but he can heal. He can do something. So maybe that's why he maintained a certain vitality and virility when he was in the mental ward, or whatever they wanted to call it, because he was around all that chaos, and maybe that fed him or something. I don't know. They never mentioned that really, but it's I guess a possibility. But okay. So Corey and Michael go kind of killing, and they kill the doctor and the other nurse, and you kind of get the idea that maybe that helped heal the kid's hand. Maybe, kind of. And they go but then Corey, something happens where he's like, what good were you to Michael, or something else like that, and he throws Michael down and takes his mask. Okay, sure, you little twerpy dude threw down Michael Myers and took his mask off of him. Right. So the kid's got the mask, he sets up this whole thing, and he kills the shit out of the four band bullies. Kills the shit out of them too. like one with one at the drummer. I wanted to see this kill, but it happened off screen. Little drummer boy got a stick right through his eye. Um, he took a tow truck through a fence and kind of ran over the heavyset girl who was, the passive complicit to these bullyings. The African American girl he beat to death with a giant wrench, and then the asshole douchebag white guy, he lit up a torch and shoved it in the dude's mouth. It was like, holy shit. Like, wow, like that was a bad death. That was a bad death. Wow. And then he basically kick smashed the heavyset girl's head, because she wasn't dead, even though she was kind of trapped under the tow truck. So he kills them. And then, Lori and Allison have their fight, and she's leaving, and she's going to be with Corey, and they're going to take each other away. And then, like, Lori's in the house by herself, and she looks really depressed. She takes out the gun, and she's drinking, and then she calls the police and says she wants to report a suicide. And you're building up this expectation that she's going to kill herself. But there's someone in the house. And that someone, and it looks like, you hear the gun go off and a big splat, but it's the pumpkin. And she opens the door and she's like, do you really think I'd kill myself? Bam, 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 bam. Like 4 shots into the dude, falls down. It's Corey in the Michael Myers mask. And she takes it off of him. And his whole thing is, if she, and they go, and he was like, I knew it. And he was like, you not gonna have, if I can't have her, no one will. And Corey takes the knife he's got to his own throat, right? Own throat, falls back. Lori, okay, get this. The mega prepper, the person who this has been her guiding sort of personality, thought, and principle for 44 years now at this point in time, has taken the life of her daughter and son-in-law, traumatized the shit out of her granddaughter, killed a whole bunch of other people. What does the first thing she does when she knows that Allison is home and walking in as this happens? Because there's a whole thing where Allison's car needs like her muffler or exhaust system fixed. So they hear her car coming up, and that's why Corey jams the thing, because he knows Allison's there and is probably going to blame Lori for this. So he knows she's there. She knows she's coming up. But what does Lori do? She pulls the neck out of Corey's knife. The knife out of Corey's neck. So she's standing there semi-shocked, holding the bloody knife over a dead, somewhat dead, but dying Corey. So when Allison comes in, what happens? She sees that. What did you do? And then leaves to run away. Like, okay, fine, whatever. Right? I mean, it almost, the way this whole part was set up, it was more set up like some sort of CW, like sexy serial sort of thing, where the daughter comes home to see the mom kissing the boyfriend, and then runs away to be by herself for a while because she can't handle it. But instead of that, it's her grandma murdering her little douchebag Romeo asshat boyfriend. Like, and she's just like, oh, I'm just going to leave. But she sees like this radio tower thing burning. There's a few other kills going on. There's the asshole radio DJ, and there was actually kind of a funny part with that where it cuts out his tongue, and it messes up the vinyl turntable, and that was actually kind of funny. And there's a whole thing Corey had about this tower that he could climb it and see something. It was nonsense. His whole thing about climbing this radio tower to see some other life or whatever was just nonsense. It was complete nonsense. Like you and me in our sort of dirt baggy 15-year-old writing poetry selves would not have come up with something as utterly stupid as what this kid was saying about whatever this was about climbing some radio tower. It was, the fuck are you talking about? And then, so she's down on fire, and then, you know, this is several minutes later, many minutes later, she gets a call from, I keep forgetting, Mike or whatever. I keep forgetting the cop's name, the one from the first movie. What? And he calls her and he's like, "What's going on? We just got a call to suicide at your house." This is a why. This has got to be. I mean, minimum 5 minutes after that. Not boom, 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 boom. So she gets the call and immediately turns around to go home. Now, while that's going on, Michael has entered the house. He picks up his mask, kills, like full on kills Corey now. And Corey's definitely dead now because Michael killed him. So you know now he's higher on full power. Now, okay. This part now we can encapsulate as actually being cool. Because even without the prepper cage house, Laurie fights the shit out of Michael. And it's all in the kitchen basically, and it's pretty knocked down, drag out. Like she gets a couple good hits on him with a couple of weapons, and he's throwing her around and like choking her, almost puts her hand into a garbage disposal, which somehow he knows what it is. I don't know if that was a big thing in 1978. That 6-year-old Michael would have known what that is. Apparently knows what a garbage disposal enough to try and stick her hand down in. And then, she is finally able to kind of get him off of that. Puts one knife through his hand, sticks him on the table, like hits him with another chair or something like that with a frying pan. Gets another knife, sticks his other hand into like the table, pulls the fridge down to trap him on the legs. So he's on this table, damn near crucified on it, trying to move and everything else like that. And he actually pulls his hand through the knife and is trying to like choke her to death. Allison comes back in, like yanks and breaks his arm back down, and they have this whole thing where they pull the mask off. He's like, she's like, "I tried to run from you. I tried to trap you. I'm just gonna kill you." And like slices his, like after stabbing him right in the heart, slices his fucking throat. And like Allison is there for that, with that, and they're like, "Oh, just finish it," and like cuts like up his arm too, so he's just bleeding out on this. Finally the cops come in, like half an hour or something like that later, and it's like all the cops coming in and what's his face, and they see Michael dead there, and then they're like, "I know what we're going to," and Laurie's like, this is how we're going to finish it. Now you get the sense during this that now Laurie and Allison completely cool, like nothing ever happened. Everything's fine, everything's groovy. They tie Michael up to the top of Allison's car, drive him to the auto wrecking yard that Corey worked at for his either uncle or dad, not sure which. Oh, by the way, he does kill his utterly nuts bag mom. But so they go to this thing, and they go in and they lead this procession, and some other cops are like, "This isn't how this is done." And so the African American sheriff, who's apparently still sheriff, comes up, "Tonight it is." and then you almost get "Evil dies tonight" like in the back. They didn't do that, but you kind of got that same feeling of this is fucking nuts. So they have this procession of these cop cars that are following Allison's car with Michael Myers' dead body tied to it like it's a mattress. Apparently, during this procession, they picked up a lot of other people, and they all, they get into the thing, they line up the car to the grinder bit, the big machine that you put cars in and just grinds them to pieces. So they're getting this set up, right? They get this whole thing set up. They untie Michael and they set him up there, and then the crowd parts. Now this is a city, this is a town that has been blaming Lori for Michael Myers, right? They blamed her, but now they part ways, so she can march up regally up on this thing, go to and throw, like Allison throws the switch to pull the switch to start the thing, and then Lori rolls Michael's body on, and it is a very visceral sort of thing. I mean, that it was not like cut away to a face. It was you were watching Michael Myers get ground up in this sort of thing. They did not shy away from that. There wasn't a whole lot of blood, which made sense because he pretty much should have completely bled out and then some in Laurie's house. But I mean, they did that. And then they're still getting narration as Laurie's writing her book. And the only real break in that narration in this one part is Allison and Laurie sitting together at the table, and it's daylight, and she takes her hand and goes, uh, I know what happened with Corey, and like you did the right thing, sort of thing. So, oh, boom, just forgotten, forgiven, no problem. No problem with it whatsoever. You were right. All this other like bullshit that I did, no apology for being an angsty little bitch about things. None of that other stuff, just I know what happened and you were right. And then apparently she's moving out of Haddonfield, and Laurie's writing her book, and maybe, a whole still flirty thing with Cop Guy from the 70s. And that's it. Right? That's it. That's how it ends. Okay? Fuck you. it's kind of my thing for that. Like, fuck, is this really how it kind of ends? Because the way it fades last after Halloween. So, is Allison secretly taking the evil with her? Did the evil that's in all of us get awakened in her to infect another town? Is the evil of Michael Myers and all the power he accrued from all the people he killed, is that somehow now out in the universe like some sort of evil dead spirit just sliding around on the Sam Raimi cam trying to infect and get into somebody else? Is this some sort of vague sort of thing like, oh, we kind of put in a little tiny bit from the Thorn cult arc without really talking about that, and now it's going to go some. So, you can't ever believe anything's really going to end with these things anymore, but if it is the end of Halloween, it went out on an utterly terrible, terrible note. This might be the worst Halloween movie. It might be. In my opinion, it might be. I know people want to bag on the one with Busta Rhymes, but you know what? That movie had Busta Rhymes in it. And that people always think, people bag on him in that movie all the time. You know what? He was awesome in that movie. He was fun to watch in that movie. He was like, I'm in the Kung Fu movies and he's Kung Fu fighting Michael Myers with it. That was awesome. I don't care what other people are going to say. That was fun as hell. I like that. There's several movies in the whole large Halloween sort of spectacular that are not really that great. But at least they were trying, and at least they made it about an actual story and Michael Myers. This sort of thing was shit. It reminded me a lot, like I kept thinking there maybe half hour or so into this. all I could think of is like those Hellraiser movies that were other movies originally, and then some asshole studio head who should never studio heads and record executives and people at the top of the companies of these things that produce quote unquote art, you should never make decisions about anything. You're running a company, shut the fuck up about the product. You're not a creative person, you're an asshole, shut up. Don't ever make things. Because then you get motherfuckers like the Weinsteins and things like that. So shut up. Have your creative people do what the creative people do. You sit there and just completely just take all the money and everything like the viruses that you are. Anyway, um, where was it? Oh yeah, so it's like it was so there's these other Hellraiser movies and some of these other movies started off as something else, and then someone was like, "Hey, we have this other IP going around. Let's just put this in it." So now you've ruined two things. You've ruined what could have been an original movie on its own, and you've ruined a pre-existing IP. You've ruined two things in one by putting it, and that's what this felt like. This felt like this could be an artsy horror movie dealing and talking about like legitimately being able to bring out a real discussion about trauma, about mental illness, about the combination of those things, and juxtaposing how I know that's some people's favorite words in a not favorite word kind of way, but it could have been the different ways to kind of handle trauma. What was that, Alive or something like that, where it was like a plane crash and it was like William Hurt or Jeff Bridges or something, and I've never seen it, but I've heard about it, where it's like there was a plane crash and there's a couple people who survived it, and like the one person like melts down and the other person goes super flighty about it because they're like, oh, this means nothing now or whatever. You could have done that. Have been like, oh, there's someone who survived trauma in a really horrible way and they're dealing with it in this way of trying to move on. Here's someone who survived trauma and they're struggling with getting to that point where now they can kind of pick up after themselves a little bit. Here's someone who had trauma and they're going to now continue the cycle of it. And you could have had it be a trauma around murders and serial killers and stuff like that. And maybe if you still wanted to have the idea of the traumatized kid learning from someone worse, maybe you could have had you could have made it some other serial killer or some other shitty person, and then this person who's traumatized and hurting and can't get over it and has that rage coming out finds the wrong person to encourage them. That could have been an interesting movie. That could have been something that was worth watching. This was not worth watching as either an examination of PTSD and mental illness, as a movie in the Halloween franchise, any of the timelines and versions, let alone as a combination of the two. It was just bad. It was bad storytelling, even in and of itself. It was terrible storytelling. It was all over the damn place in terms of storytelling from the larger narrative. Made no goddamn sense and was almost completely removed from the larger story arc. Like literally every other Halloween movie is more connected to the Halloween franchise in every way than this movie is. It's completely disconnected. We talked about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. That is more connected to Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and other movies to it more than this is to any Halloween anything, right? Pardon me, I'm tiring myself out with this. So it is a failure on every level. The actors, at least Jamie Lee Curtis and the young woman who plays Allison, whose name is I keep wanting to say Madge and a Mick, and that's not right because that's Shelley from Twin Peaks and from the girl from Sleepwalkers and stuff. It's completely not her. But yeah, like they did well with what they had. And the dude who was the cop was trying real hard to be kind of flirty, and with that you kind of felt bad for him because he was really awkward at it, and he did a really good job with that. Yeah, and that was it. Like, those three tried to do the best they could with what they had, but the problem was with what they had was a hot crap. Eh, Internally inconsistent with its own self in its own movie, internally inconsistent in terms of the arc that they're going from the very first Halloween movie to Halloween in 2018 to Halloween Kills to this, not consistent with that, not consistent with itself in the individual movie. People were behaving in ways that were completely unbecoming of their character. It wasn't even about them or Michael, or it wasn't even about it at all. So just bad. It's a bad movie, poorly done. Uh, it might be the worst entry of any of the Halloween timelines. Again, at least Halloween Resurrection was, to me, it's amusing. You know, it's fun to see pre-Battlestar Katie Sackhoff. And again, I'm not sorry for it. Busta Rhymes in that movie was great. Screw you guys, I love Busta. And anyway, and in that movie, he was great. And I don't care what people say. That's fun as hell. I would rather watch that than Halloween Ends. I would rather, yeah, and give me the two technically worst Halloween movies, quote, close quote, and I'd rather watch them back to back every day for a week than see this one again. It was, I was fortunate enough to be able to see it for free because the people I work for at Forest of Screams rented out a whole theater for us and the people from Seven Floors of Hell because they own both. And they were like, this would be like a fun thing to do. Da, 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 da. So I went to that because I wanted to see it anyway. I I wasn't able to see it with either of the sort of groups that I might have seen it with, either my one really dear friend or a couple other good friends of mine that I had worked with. We I kind of had, who am I going to see it with, one or both or how? I'm probably not going to get the opportunity to do that because of working the weekends and schedules and all that. So this might have been the only opportunity I do it to see it. I saw it for free, which was really kind of the people we work for. They didn't need to do that. It was really cool. So thank you again, Rodney and Melinda. Um, but I'm really glad I didn't have to pay for it, and I kind of feel bad that they paid to rent out a whole theater for that. I feel kind of bad they rented out a whole theater for Halloween Ends because that had to hurt. That had to hurt. And it's funny, like I talked to a couple people after that, and like one person talked to a lot about like story stuff, and we were talking about just the inconsistencies and how bad it was in terms of storytelling. And the one person I talked to, he hasn't done it this year because he's kind of moved up in terms of the administration and the running of the park when we're on, but he was like the Michael Myers at Forest of Screams for several years, and he was really good as Michael Myers. There was a couple times I went through. He was always on the walking trail part, and he would absolutely nail the timing, like the way he like made it like a physical action with it, like he was dead on, and he he was like the first person I kind of talked to about it. He was like, I'm like, it was just like I didn't even want to talk about it because it was so bad. But yeah, so Halloween ends, everybody. Just don't bother. Don't bother. Don't bother going to see it. And if you are forced to see it, don't even talk about it. Don't hashtag it. Don't make any videos about it. Don't anything about it. Just let it fade out like the wet fart that who ended up being the main character was. Just let it dissipate into the ether where it belongs. All right. I need to get something else to eat and lie down. So, please like and subscribe and ring all the bells and do all the other social media and internet bells and whistles and stuff like that. I think I'm going to just kind of pump out several reviews here in a row, starting with this. So, yeah, yeah. Man, that was bad. Ugh. All right. Good night, everybody. Peace.